Welcome to Impossible Live. Welcome back if you're joining us. And wherever you are, whatever time zone, whether you're live, whether you're on a replay, whether you're just popping in for a portion, or whether you're just here, you're just here to see amazing Deborah. And I really just have to thank you also for the timing. So happy, peaceful New Year wherever you are. And and happy just when you have a chance, just dial in today, whether it's live or on a replay, with some sort of presence at a point when you need to be lifted. And the reason I say that is it really takes some acknowledgement and grateful for lots of trust work to just accept that opportunity of some time for us. So I want to thank you again for joining us today. And thank you, beautiful Deborah, for being here. And thank you, Deborah, also for persistence. So I'm cheering for a couple reasons. Not only, hey, Jackie, warm welcome. Not only is this magical, wonderful woman here to join us today, but get an opportunity to give thanks always to Lachelle Atkins, America's Supermom, who I am too excited because I get to have a conversation with Deborah today. We get to enjoy her gems. And I finally get to meet Lachelle in person this weekend after 5 years. So, yep, just lots of cheers and lots of toasts. And Jackie, happy, peaceful New Year to you. I Deborah's Lachelle will introduce you to amazing, magical people, and you're not sure why or when or where or we're not sure where the pieces to the puzzles go. And I really have to thank Deborah for persistence. Deborah was introduced to me during Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The board member is like, I'm in a fundraising mode. It was October, and I'm in a fundraising mode, and we had lots of events. And at the time, I was kind of in charge of fundraising. And so Deborah was introduced to me at a time where my lens to process, a lens gets kind of full. And I have to thank her because Deborah sent me a message ages after, like, hey, how are you? We never chatted. And I was so grateful because Bill McCormick taught me that years ago. In social media, we don't want the drive-bys. We're hoping for the gems and the nuggets, and Lachelle always brings them. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to amazing Deborah and encourage you not only to click on that beautiful link below her, globalvillagecampus.com, but to pop into this amazing woman's posts. We sometimes share content and we're not sure who reads it. And I was one of Deborah's readers. And here she is almost a year after Lachelle introduced us. And she's like, hey, she had no idea I was reading everything she wrote. And we still didn't create space for a coffee chat or a conversation. So it's really the reminder as she's nodding about divine timing, about incredible patience, about care, and about discernment. And without further ado, here is amazing Deborah. Deborah, warm welcome to Impossible Live. Let's let our listeners and our guests have a chance to fall in love and discover a little more about wonderful you.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I just noticed that, and please forgive me, but I hope that this is a space where we can be flexible. That URL doesn't actually take you anywhere. It's actually better to use the workshop URL because then you'll connect with me or my LinkedIn. So, and I'm happy to put both of those in the chat. But thank you so much for thank you so much for this space and for your warmth, Mel. And there's not many people that I speak with, 2 or 3 times where I feel so welcomed and, space is made for the people that meet with you, Mel. And I just feel that's so beautiful. Like you're not just warm and friendly, you create space for people. And I know that's a rare trait. So I really appreciate it. And I'm happy to be here to talk about trust. We were kind of chatting about it right before we got on live. And I think that a lot of people are focusing on different levels of trust that are harder to achieve. And we can start with things that are simpler. So I'm really excited to see where this conversation goes today.
I am too. And also to say, heads up with transparency, Deborah's coming back because in the process of just preparing for today, sometimes we learn in our conversations. There's just so much, and I really want to thank you for that amazing compliment about space because I didn't realize it. On Possible Live, we started, and I thought it was going to be a temporary thing, and this spring will be almost 4 years.
Mm,
And I I think one of the challenges as we're exploring trust and as we're exploring opportunities and with full transparency, I'm working with amazing Gwen White. And Gwen says, Mel, you got to talk about explore trust ops. And you have to learn to say it through a lens that it's easy for us to see because trust means many different things.
mhm,
Personally,
mhm,
based on lived experience, based on whether you're an aspiring leader, an emerging leader, ah, whether you're a really conscious, vibrant leader. Oh, and in some cases, whether you're a retiring leader preparing someone for succession. But trust means so many different things from all the different angles. And I'm delighted that Deborah's here to help us start exploring it through the leadership lens as we're in a world where we really need to hear more of the voices. And I mentioned to Deborah earlier, some people have been checking in on me because I've been a little quiet recently. I had to take a social media pause
mhm,
and without apology, just to create the space
mhm,
for growth and in the conversations with Deborah, the reminder to really listen carefully. It's about presence and awareness. And
mhm.
Deborah, I know I'm throwing out a lot. Help us dive in with one of your amazing frameworks.
Well, I think what you mentioned is a great place to start. Needing, feeling the need or the pull to be on all the time, on all, whether it's social media or it could be you have 4 kids and they're all wanting your attention in a different way. It doesn't matter really where it is. When we understand that we will be our best for others once we are able to be the best for ourselves. Or to use the wording I used a few minutes ago, the way that you create space for other people, you also need to create the space for yourself. And so starting with self trust is always my encouragement because you learn how trust works for you. And for each of us, yes, there are some like common denominators, common factors. However, for each person, it's a little bit different, it's nuanced, right? What feels like, oh yeah, I really can trust this for me and for you, there may be a little bit of a shift in how we go about that. So the best way to understand how trust works for us as individuals is to look at our own ability to trust ourselves in the different ways that we show up. So I'll give you a really simple example. So we used one with being on all the time on social media platforms. Another one is I just started this course. By the way, it is Psychological Safety and Trust 101. That's the name of the course. And in the first like before the first lesson, nothing was coming up for me to give as an exercise. So I have like a lesson and we have a discussion and then I give some exercises for people to use to practice. And I'm really good with create. I mean, I have so many exercises even from previous versions of the course, but I said no, 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 I'm just going to stay here, and when I get into the course, I will ask people what they really want practice with. What do they feel they want to really strengthen? And when I asked, I didn't really get anything clear. People were just like, oh, but we just really want an exercise. I was like, hmm. So are we doing the exercise because we're really trying to strengthen something? Or are we doing it because we're used to schools check off boxes, do your homework, get a grade, why are we doing it? So I wrestled with that for a while. And then I finally said, you know what? I'm going to trust the the resistance in my system to just create an exercise for the sake of creating an exercise. And I'm going to let the students, the learners know we're not going to have an exercise for this. And here are my reasons why, because I don't want to make it up just so that we have something that mimics the colonial education that we've all received. Interestingly enough, as soon as I came to that piece and I trusted my system, and I was about to write an email to say, we're not going to have any exercises for this particular lesson. I was looking at a certain page and this article just jumped out at me. And I literally had a succession of 3 articles just like jump out at me and be like, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. So then I just created a very, very short exercise for them to read the articles and then share their thoughts. But it was amazing because I was going to just say, I'm not doing anything. But in that case, this happens over and over again, whether it's something small like that or something really large. When we learn to trust the signals coming in our system, we never know which way things are going to go. So it's not about having this mental certainty. I know it's going to be step 1, then step 1A, then step 2, then step 2A. No, it's about having it's still certainty, but it's a certainty that I'm going to be okay, we're going to be okay, and everything is going to work out just fine, right? I don't know how, but I do know that everything is going to be fine if I can be with what is present in this moment. And so that's the kind of trust that I encourage people in my community or that I speak with to really develop, is to say, okay, this is the kind of certainty that I want to have. It is not certainty that I know what's happening next mentally, but it's the certainty that we're going to be fine. We're going to get through this. It creates ease in the body. And then inspiration and articles like those ones can jump out at you and guide you because you're no longer in this very tense. A lack of trust creates a lot of tension in the body. Whereas when you're able to trust and relax, it eases you up, and then you're able to experience more miracles more consciously.
I know this amazing woman, and I'm so grateful for you joining us today, and for all of the wonderful gems that you're sharing so far. And I really want to really frame this, as we said from the beginning, Deborah's coming back. And one of the things about talking about trust and our journeys, and Deborah's frame of the self-trust journey, and the real reminder, and I appreciate it as Leslie Flowers pops in, that many of us think that we always have to have the answers. We always have to have the knowledge. And I appreciate also that Deborah mentioned colonial. For some, that means historical. For others, it means generational. It may mean the legacy framework of what we're carrying, which sometimes we weren't necessarily feeling like we were born with. We're picking up uh, some sort of residue or some sort of signal, or
Mhm.
um, and I don't want to say it from a trauma perspective or lens, because that's not my field of expertise, but I will say it as a person whose definition of trust was determined by things that happened to me as a child. That's where my first trust story comes from broken trust as a child. And maybe for some, through the lens, through the historical part, maybe we're seeing it from something we read in a story or something someone else has shared with us. But when my trust was broken as a child, shortly after, my cousin shared a story with me, a younger cousin, about her trust being broken. And I really have a container for it. And I think that's one of the things, as we're talking about that framework. from a personal perspective, from a perspective as leaders, as family members, of all the different roles that we have, which sometimes really change our trust lens, so to speak. I had to learn through the broken trust, and it's one of the reasons why I'm now certified in trust. And I have to really thank Yvette Bethel of Organizational Soul and the IFB network. If you're looking for something to read, check out Yvette's book, which I will drop in the comments, which is Interconnectivity, Flow, and Balance. I didn't realize as a kid my connection to losing my trust was maybe
Mhm.
preparation for, as the oldest grandchild on that side of the family, for my cousin having a lens, having a space, us having a relationship as kids where we could kind of talk about absolutely everything. And I think that part of what Deborah's saying, whether you're designing a course, whether you're designing a framework, whether you're looking at a system or a tool, whether it's something to look at personally, professionally, for a community that we're dreaming of, as I'm about to launch and relaunch We Rise and Soar, which is a community from about 5 years ago. I think what Deborah's reminding us is that it really has to start with some sort of awareness and some sort of acknowledgement of, is this for me? Is this not for me? Is this for them? Is this not for them? So I love Deborah's ability in our conversations to really help separate what, in the gold rush days, they used to sort through gold and hope for the gold nuggets just to pop in and pop out. But that reminder that sometimes we may not have the energy,
Mm.
we may not have the personal space, and and in a really cool way, Deborah's also helping to remind me that link under Deborah. Let's change it so you get to see her amazing workshop that's coming up, because that's really the best way. If we could leave a lead behind, as we always hope to come up with conversations or topics that are helpful for you. But as you're exploring, whether it's the first work day of the new year for some, we may not feel like working on overload or overdrive yet. But Deborah has an amazing, amazing series that is really, really cool in terms of opportunity to just join in and sample in a place of trust. And I love it because we're both looking at trust from a
Mhm.
perspective of two different generations,
Mm.
from our different identities, from Deborah being a parent, me being the auntie, the godmother, and that was the role for the workaholic, you know? And part of it is that awareness or that acknowledgement of the selectiveness. But I love how you felt like you needed to tailor an activity,
Mhm.
and the reminder in presence with discernment to just kind of wait for it, that the answer would either fall into your lap or there'd be some sort of guidance, or, this is the place we should go. This is the direction we should go. But I absolutely love that because I think it really talks a little bit about, we feel personally crossroads. They may not
Mhm.
be easy, if they're public, others can see we have a choice of the intersection. How do we approach it?
Mhm.
Are we taking the plane? Are we taking the train? Are we taking a path? Are we blazing a trail? But I think what you're really reminding us to do is lean in before we adopt a system, or we feel a responsibility to change it, so that we change it. When we change it slowly, and we can change it for the greater good.
Mhm. Yeah. This is kind of like a really good segue into why I made those decisions that I made is because I know my human design. I know how I'm wired, and I know that when I try to initiate things. See, you would have done it very differently, Melanie, because initiating is natural for you. But for me, when I initiate things, it's so effortful. And often it just feels like extra work for everybody all the way around. And I'm like, no, let's just find a more joyful, easeful way. So my human design type, I'm a classic builder or a generator. And so we are here to respond to life and to respond to things instead of starting things. Now, if there was something that had just naturally come up that I wanted to respond to by creating those exercises, that would have been fine, but nothing had showed itself. So I didn't have anything to respond to. And so I was very careful because if I'm teaching something, I need to also be practicing it myself. So I was very careful to say, I'm not going to put on something that I don't necessarily see as correct for me to use my energy that way. And that's a huge piece of, for me, in self trust. Human design is a tool. It is not the answer. It's not the end all be all. It's not your, spiritual guide or anything like that. But it is a really helpful tool for understanding how you're naturally designed to use your energy. What's easier. So I always say this with people when I talk about human design. There is no box, there is no label that you're stuck with. These are just like archetypes and ideas that can help you understand and have more compassion for yourself when you're sick, when you're tired, when you're under resourced. You kind of know, okay, that's just going to take too much energy from me. Let me go this way because it's going to help me conserve energy right now when I don't have that much. That's what it's about. It's about, and then that's at the beginning. And then over time, it becomes something where you're like, where will my energy be best placed? It's like, yes, I can do A, I can do B, and I can do C. But of those three paths, where would my energy best be placed? And for each of us, the answer to that is a little different. And so self trust for me, I find goes a lot easier when there's some form of orientation language, some form of grounding reference for me to lean on. So I'm not just always in my head trying to figure everything out in my head, but there's something I can say, oh, no, 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 no. I know this. I have, and for me also being a line 3, understanding that the 3 gains its wisdom through lived experience, trial and error, and experimentation. So I can say, I've had all of these experiences. I can trust that. Because there was a period of time when I didn't trust that. When I was like, well, if I don't have the certification, or if I don't have the degree or whatever it is, then maybe I'm not qualified to know whether that's correct for me or not. But thankfully, I'm no longer there because I can trust my lived experience gives me the wisdom that I need, and I don't need to go deep into research because that's not how I'm wired. But for some people, they do need to go deep into research, and that's beautiful too. So understanding, like having that like grounding reference to go back to when you're feeling in between, unsure, fuzzy, I think is a really great tool, as long as you don't make it your new identity and your new crutch, that now everything revolves around this label that you've given yourself, which is unfortunately how some people use human design, but definitely not my encouragement. Just using it as a tool, just like a spoon or a fork, to make your experience much more enjoyable.
So I am loving this. A couple of things, and we're going to have to share it in the chat. So
Yes.
for those who have not explored human design yet, and I will say, as Deborah's saying, that I'm an initiator and an informer, that business coaches introduced me to human design almost 9 years ago. And I didn't click. I didn't click a form. And I think one of the things, as we're talking about types and we're talking about experiences, I had to learn that sometimes things are mentioned and they're really called to me. And other times, from a timing perspective, it doesn't align with something else that's going on. From an energy perspective,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have room in the container,
Mm-hmm.
room in the mug. You have to have space, whether it's to process or digest. So human design And I really grateful that I didn't respond in the beginning because I wouldn't have discovered quantum human design. And I think,
Mhm.
for those who I'm the teacher's kid, or as Merrill reminds me, I said once, the daughter of a scholar. So, that through that lens of learning and through that lens of lived experience, I had to really learn as a person, as a coach in all the roles, that sometimes it wasn't necessarily for me. The information wasn't for me. The information was for someone just like my cousin when she was younger, and I didn't have an answer. We didn't find those answers for many, many decades. When I then processed it through a conversation gratefully with my mom. But
Mhm.
I had to look through it through someone else's lens of their lived experience to kind of,
Mhm.
but I think human design for me is a blueprint, and not just a blueprint of what I respond to. It's sometimes a guidance of when I respond. We have to respond when we have energy, hopefully, or when there's a priority, or there's an emergency, or there's an immediate need. For those who are really spiritual, I had someone I absolutely adore who, because of human design, we're no longer having conversations. It didn't fit into their definition of spirituality
Mm.
and into their lens and their container. And I appreciate her immensely. Her mom's a deacon, fabulous woman who knew something was up with me one day and called me out of the blue just to check on me and make sure I was okay. And
Mm.
later in the new year, through that lens of lived experience, I would welcome an opportunity to revisit that relationship should the trust opportunity, to rejuvenate trust, to replenish trust, to explore trust. I I don't think it was something we ever did in that relationship. We just
Mhm.
immediately clicked, and we thought that the alignment would be, like, complete, and we met in person, and it felt like magic. Occasionally, something changes, and it changes in leadership, it changes in our roles, it changes, and like Jackie said, yep, responding when we have energy, because sometimes Jedi J is there. Jedi J says, "Do you believe our energy impacts trust?" Jay, I could talk about this for about an hour, so let's ask Deborah.
Well, I guess there's many lenses through which to see that question, right? So, one lens to see that question through is to say, like, how our energy moves through our body. Let's say if I haven't eaten and I'm super tired and, I stub my toe and my energy is overall is kind of low, I might not trust you as much when you tell me something that if I don't know you that well, maybe that could be a thing. But like I said, trust has many different components, right? One of the biggest things about trust is there needs to be what you could call integrity, or you could also call it coherence. That it's like, okay, the person said they were going to do something and then they did it, or they said they were going to do it but then they communicated when they couldn't. So it lines up, it adds up, it seems coherent. When you're not, when what you're saying and what you're doing are not jiving, or in some way you're not keeping your promises, that's always, as we know, a big way to break trust. So how that looks for each energy configuration can be very different. But I think energy is everything, so it affects all aspects of our lives, including trust. So yeah, I would say that it does. It's just I would need a little bit more context of where your question is coming from to be able to give you a better, more specific answer.
What I love is Jay and I have been talking about trust now for a couple of months, and we started talking about trust in Angie Alexander's Sage Leadership Community on Clubhouse. And I appreciate it because Angie was having a series where we were talking about energy. And I think that energy and trust are intertwined. Energy can offer the opportunity to explore trust, to develop trust, to activate trust. And I'm saying activate trust probably from the emotional intelligence and the positive
Mhm.
intelligence lens of them being superpowers that the potential exists within us. On the other hand, I really appreciate and I have to thank Nick, uh, who is here and amazing from the perspective. Nick was mentioning my energy in during Leslie Flowers' Mind Over Matter live stream earlier today, and I smile because sometimes we can appear to have tremendous amounts of energy. I was able to say it through the frame of the people who were checking in on me recently because Mel's not attached to the phone. Mel's not attached to the social media, that this is something for those who know me and know me well from a perspective of responding through an energy lens that I I had to learn as 4 months ago as my love was hit by a tractor trailer that jackknifed. Our lives really changed a lot, and it's the reminder of the lens that that day a wonderful woman who I had met in Linnaire's community, Sigrid, who is having Linnaire and Sigrid are having an amazing event tomorrow, actually, and we'll get Linnaire to share that link, and I'll share that link in too. A conversation about the words and the language that we use. Something traumatic happened, and I I went into like radio silence because got to take care of family, got to make sure we're okay. And my love was on the way, first ambulance, first ER room. And I appreciated it because Sigrid and Linnaire's community, I was supposed to attend an event. And for those of you who know, events are everything, right? And just like energy is everything, just like trust is everything, something really important to me. And Sigrid's sharing a wonderful link to her event. I'm like, I can't go, and I really didn't have the words. So I sent Sigrid a picture. And Sigrid responded in such a way that trust was immediately ignited.
Mhm.
She helped me restore the connectivity, like we forget when we're holding our breath. And just like Deborah was saying before, in the perspective of approaching relationships with trust, sometimes we forget how to breathe. We are holding our breath. We are not sure of the words or the language or the step to take. And I think the reminder is, as Jay asked us about energy, sometimes our energy, our patterns, our responses, they're not really connected like some cute little, wonderful map. They don't look like the constellations. They're not as beautiful as the northern lights or the aurora borealis. They're not as gorgeous as like you're looking at it, a beautiful landscape. It's just sometimes not pretty. And I think that part of it we have to be reminded occasionally. And I'm appreciative of amazing clients and collaborators and amazing guests like Deborah and questions like Jay's. And please keep the questions coming. Are that we're not always ready to communicate what is happening. And that is
Mhm.
an opportunity. Whether it's an opportunity for a pause, I need to do a check in, I need to see how my body feels, I need to see, do I have the energy to support this? I need to lean in and see more. Or, as amazing Deborah said, you know, I need to check in with how I'm feeling through a specific lens. But I really want to encourage you, when you have a chance, when you're ready to explore trust opportunities, that human design lens, it helped me kind of focus my kaleidoscope. So I know now there's a lot of stimuli coming in, and you understand it as a leader. You're running a meeting, you're facilitating, your department's in charge of something, some some part of a strategic plan, some part of a next step. Something magical is supposed to happen. And the energy changes and the environment changes. and trust changes in your environment. And it can really make us pause for a minute. The reminder, if it's internal, am I going to communicate this, say this out loud now? Am I going to wait for a debrief meeting? Am I going to wait for a pause? Am I just going to take a little break? But Lanier also shared, as Deborah's giving us beautiful, beautiful words, Lanier's giving us also her event tomorrow is how language creates visibility, credibility, and connection on LinkedIn. And a trust opportunity is a chance to, as Deborah said, through the integrity lens, kind of notch and work on your credibility. It can change how you're seen. It can change how and whether others approach you. And that part of the self-trust journey, whether it happens publicly, privately, with a coach, with a facilitator, with a family member, take some
Mhm.
space to make a deep dive. But Deborah mentioned profiles before, which is a part of human design. And I thank you because Deborah mentioned we're sharing that three line of experiences, which is one of the reasons why I keep saying to Deborah, we got to keep talking forever, I think. But that willingness to share your lived experience or the
Mhm.
ability to know sometimes, and Jay's saying it from a Jedi perspective. Jay's saying never pause for something to happen, go after it. Some opportunities, Jay, took me a long time to realize they're not for me. They're for someone else. There's a gift in there for someone else. They've been looking for that magic, that invitation, that environment for something else magical to happen in their life. I had to learn it's not always for me. It's the reminder I'm possible means that we have to learn to define it personally. And that was the part that human design profiles help me understand a little bit. Deborah, without us going too deep into profiles, what would you say about profiles for someone who needs that lens to really understand what we were talking about?
Okay, so yeah, I mentioned the line three, which is half of my, and actually use the phrase public role only because profile gets used for so many other things as well. So I use the phrase public role. So my public role is a 3-5. So it's partially the line three of lived experience and partially the five of the leader, the stranger who guides. And so, what I would say about public role, it's actually one of the 8 elements that we cover in the workshop, the beta workshop, is it really helps you to see what your role is in humanity that you've already been playing or trying to play and getting pushback against. And actually, 3-5s are, we tend to be the black sheep in our families and in our communities. And so often we have actually, it's the profile that has the hardest time really like embracing itself often. But once we understand what our role is as troubleshooters, as people who go out and test things to find what works and then bring back to the collective, hey, don't waste your time with all those things. Just do this thing. This is what works. When we really lean into that gift that we have, it makes our work in the world so much easier. We automatically understand kind of what roles we play best in a company, or if it's our own company, like where we focus our gifts and talents in terms of what we talk about in our marketing or in our networking with people. And we don't really waste our time on things that, it's great, but it's not really where we're leaning into our strengths. So that's one of the elements, along with your audience and your life theme. Those three together, the public role, the audience, and the life theme, really help you to kind of know where to focus your energy when you are communicating with other people.
I absolutely love that. And for those of you who are just popping in, when you have a chance, check out this amazing link that Deborah has shared with us for her workshop, which is about to start this week. And amazing Lachelle, who introduced Deborah and I, is at our audience. And Lachelle, I can't wait to meet you this week. And I think also one of the things, just in terms of timing, is I really had to learn in all of the roles, and that could be the most complicated part of being a leader. That in all of the roles, we're not really sure sometimes where we fit, and we're not really sure how to make the transitions. We mentioned that just a little bit in our introduction to today's session, whether you're at a crossroads or you're at an intersection. And like Deborah saying, the marketing messages are popping up for those who are entrepreneurs, or you're building a personal or a business brand, or you're about to discover what that brand is. But I think somewhere in there, the reminder to take the pause, to really examine as our roles change, because
Mhm.
as a kid, I wasn't afraid to raise my hand for leadership. As an adult, I became hesitant. It's a reminder, as Jay was asking us about energy, and as I'm helping
Mhm.
clients navigate this, sometimes we are not sure of of the next step, and of the next step, whether it's in the path, whether it's in the blueprint. And sometimes we're not sure whether it's for us or not. I'm grateful to a mentor and a coach who once said to me, when people invite you places, ask them, why is this a great opportunity for you? Who are they interested in introducing you to? What is
Mhm.
something they're interested in talking to you about after you join them, or after you sample whatever this experience or opportunity is? And I really appreciated the lens, because sometimes it's not for us. The role, as Deborah saying, the step, the action step. And I smile because Annie's like, Mel, you got to be visible with Mel all over the place. Well, Annie wasn't around for the invisible to be visible step. And I we'll bridge that gap when we meet in person, because it was invisible to be visible to impossible. I had to discover that was the missing piece during the pandemic, because everybody, in some cases, they're just like, it's the new year, bring on the prosperity, bring on all the opportunities, bring on the great stuff of what's next. They're just looking to get to be profitable. But I'm loving, as Deborah saying, that website link under her name. Click on that beta workshop. Experiment with your quantum possibilities to kick off the new year. Or if you're catching us much later on YouTube, to kick off the next season, the next step, the
Mhm.
next phase. And as Deborah's nodding, Deborah, what should we leave them with before the next time you return to delight us during Impossible Live?
Whew, there was a lot that I was thinking about that we didn't get to today. So I think what I want to bring everyone back to is it can start with very, very simple baby steps of self-trust, right? So just getting to know, again, not going out there for someone to tell you about yourself, but rather taking what you know about yourself already and looking at it through a lens that helps to kind of organize your thoughts. It helps to organize the way that you perceive yourself. So it's like you know yourself, but how do you perceive yourself? And then how do you perceive the way that you interact with the world around you? That's where I see the opportunity for shifting. As soon as you go into like, oh, let me follow this guru and they're going to tell me what my life purpose is, and like that's you're going down a slippery slope there, right? It's very easy to get then entangled with others people's stuff, and none of us are perfect, so it's almost like the blind leading the blind, right? But when you can anchor yourself in baby steps of self trust, you get to a point where you start to, it just naturally will shift outside of you, where you're around people that you trust more, and also the people around you trust you more, but you didn't really do anything, one specific thing to cause that. It was more because you started learning how to trust yourself more. So I'm really excited to see what 2026 brings us all. And I'm here. Please see me as a resource for supporting everyone with, who feels called. Again, this is not a spray kind of message. It's really for those who feel well inclined. If there's something that I can support you with in terms of information or resources, please reach out. I'm here for that.
And I appreciate Meryl as always for sharing our wonderful events with guests. And Meryl, you're going to laugh. The catalyst to encouraging Mel to transition from invisibility to being visible is Lachelle Atkins. And I can say that because, as my family acknowledges when I meet her this weekend, I'm just going to sit in the room where she's at for a little bit and drink her in. Because I think what happens, Meryl, and we say this all the time, just like in our conversation with Deborah today, and I really, really appreciate her, is that there are some people who they have the patience, they have the wisdom, they have the grace to allow us to take steps. My sister from another mother is watching us on Meta with her headphones, and thank you, Marie Vegaburn. I love you because Marie was a catalyst before Lachelle became a catalyst, and Marie helped me lean the foundation. You have to have the framework of support, of growth, because I think sometimes that people think that the people who invite us to join them on a stage are the people who are helping us transition so we're seen. But the transition happened before then. There were some steps. There's some stuff that's behind the scenes. And also, I really appreciate being part of Roy Kowarski's disruptive business leadership. But Roy and I have only had two private conversations. I've had hundreds now with Marie. I've had hundreds now with Lachelle. And I think as I'm looking forward to having hundreds with Deborah, and those are the things that help us really transition. Sometimes someone can inspire a start, they can be a catalyst. And for those of you who did those LinkedIn review things, LinkedIn's calling us all catalysts because we put more than 5 posts on the platform last year. I need you to look at some of Lanaire's and Bryn Tillman's posts on how to be successful on the platform. The part about transition also, Meryl, in a gentle way, as a woman in business, as a woman who celebrated a milestone business last year, a lot of times people are crediting the males in our life with helping women take steps. Got to talk to some of us from the milestone generation, from different identities, different cultures, different genders, different communities about what that feels like as a lens. As a woman, 8 times out of 10, and I'll say this from this daddy's girl who's thanking my pop and all those guardian angels working overtime. The steps we take are because a woman held a door for us. A woman lit a torch for us. Deborah popped in at a point of really intense search, really big transition. And I love it because I'm working with Gwen White. And Deborah and I, our conversation, she's like, "Oh, I know Gwen. We studied together." And I'm like, there are no accidents. So I appreciate Meryl's gentleness of encouraging transitions because it's definitely something I love doing with others. And I'm not saying as a woman that we don't necessarily give credit to all the members of our world, but everybody's got a role. Roy's helped with a transition by introducing me to Lanier Johnston. And sometimes it's the introduction, it's the connection that leads to some sort of exploration, some new secret ingredient in our recipes, whether it's a recipe for exploration or success. And I was afraid to explore in public. I hope clients do it. Now Mel's full out coming out to play. And I appreciate that because you're reminding me, as Deborah's, it takes a lot. For those of you who are at a crossroads and you feel like you're stuck, Deborah's workshop has an invitation to invest what you're able to. There's a rare talent that this woman has. And I want to thank you for joining us for our first
Mm.
Impossible Live. And I can't wait for the next one. And I want to thank all of you who are popping in live. Questions about energy, questions about trust, questions about movement, questions about how we help each other get unstuck. And Deborah says that website doesn't have the workshop, but her website is filled with gems and social proof. So look to your right, look to your left, check the comments, and reach out this week as you're exploring trust, you're exploring an opportunity. Let us know what you're looking for. And let us all help each other take a couple of steps to light that up in our fragile world so it's a less fragile world in 2027.
Amen. Thank you so much, Mel. It's such an honor to be here. You're such a gem of a person.
Thank you. You are too. And I can't wait to meet you in person too. And Merrill asked, Lachelle is coming to New Jersey, Merrill. I sent you the invitation and I'm going to send it to you again. Lachelle's coming to New Jersey, to the tri-state area. And she's going to be here for a little bit. We are very grateful. She's got a beautiful child who is now exploring higher education in the area. And we can't wait to meet her. And Meryl's laughing. Merrill, thank you for a song. I'm Coming Out is playing in your mind now. You saw Diana Ross sing for the new year. And for those of you who are at a crossroads, who are joining us for the first time, I hope you'll come back. I hope you'll share this with a friend who could discover Deborah's magic, the spark. And thank you again for joining us for Impossible Live. Have a magnificent and peaceful day, week, season filled with blessings, opportunities, and possibilities until we meet again. Thank you so much. And Deborah, can't wait for our next one. Take great care, everyone. Stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, and please stay in touch.